Hello and welcome. I'm Feed Me and Spore, or Jon, and this is my studio that I built myself in my house. So I think the first version of FL Studio I ever had was 3.1. I'm pretty sure I downloaded it on like 56K on like my mum's computer in like the box room. And I remember I was trying out, I was looking for software that would do that job, and I landed on that, and it made a lot more sense to me pretty quickly than anything else I'd seen. And I got results out of it fast. So within a day, I had like a mental map of what everything did. On top of that, each time I played with it, I would find a button somewhere that did something interesting. It rewarded exploration. And it seemed self-contained. Nothing was sending me anywhere else to find other things for the job. I would have been like 16, 17 when I first downloaded it, I think. Opening FL, it was clearly a computer program. It wasn't trying to replicate a hardware interface for someone who was coming over from a mixing desk background and wanted it to look like a picture of what they'd seen before. It looks tangible and physical. I like the chunkiness to the interface. It looks fun to use. But it was designed in a way that I appreciated, in that it wasn't high contrast. It was easy to look at for a long time. And the interface was clearly designed more in a sort of Windows-orientated environment where your stuff was organized into screen and computer-orientated sort of architecture. And I was very much a digital kid, I'd grown up teaching myself computer programs since I was little. So I wanted a computer program. I didn't want a picture of a mixing desk, which I'd never seen in my life. So for me, it instantly made sense. I think the reason I've kept using FL Studio all this time, even though I've written tracks across almost every DAW at some point because of collaboration and things like that, well, ultimately, I think the main thing is that it's incredibly fast. I can't write stuff as fast as I can in anything else apart from FL. And every time I do and someone's here, one of the first things they say is, how did you get that down so quickly? So I've always found that that's really a string to its bow. I find there's some like really practical things about it. It's really difficult to crash it. And if it does crash, it tends to have your back. It has a nice backup system, and over time that really pays off. I can open tracks that I wrote in the early 2000s, and there's a good chance they'll open. And I don't know many people that can do that. Someone I know spent ages building like a virtual system based on an old, Windows XP, just so they could open an old track that no longer functioned on a modern computer. So I don't have to do that. I can access my entire library, but going back to when I was 16, which is crazy to me that they've kept it so stable and backwards compatible. I can remember when FL Studio added the piano roll, which definitely made a heck of a difference. That was a huge step for me, but you're going way back then. Since then, a massive change would have been the degree to which you can route within the mixer. I think is now unparalleled in how fast and convenient that is. I can submix incredibly. You end up with some ridiculous patching that you would never replicate. But because it's so visually clear and you're able to organize them and keep it coherent, that's an amazing tool to have. And then the other is the automation, exponential curves and things like that, being able to put automation channels in with LFOs and things like that. Really useful. And every dial is always automatable within a couple of clicks. So I used to mess around with that right from the beginning, but that's continued to get better. My most used FL Studio synth is the 3-osc. That might sound silly, but having something that can make a sine wave or a slight harmonic patch with instant pitch control and things has actually, if you went through my FLPs, you're going to find a lot of those. I use it for triggering and things as well. So I know that's not an exciting answer, but that is the truth. Aside from that, I think Harmor and Harmless I've used quite a lot. Most used FL Studio native plugin is the limiter, which I use as a sidechain listening input, as well as some limiting if I just need a simple brick wall or some control. But I'd say that's pretty indispensable for the way I work. For better or worse, I've mastered everything I've ever done. Yeah, it's everything on my discography. If you go to Spotify, every single one is a bounce that came directly out of FL Studio. It's not gone to anybody else. I've only ever mastered for vinyl at Metropolis, which I've always found a learning experience. And I'm not saying this is necessarily the way to do it, but I like doing things myself and challenging myself. And it's taken me a long time, probably, and much longer, to get to a standard where I feel that this has paid off. But being able to say that is really my track at the other end, and it sounds identical playing out of this master than it does to the one that you'll load, halfway across the world. I find value in that personally. So the longer I've gone on in my career, the more I've sort of reintroduced audiovisual stuff back in. I've always been interested in it, but it's become more important to me, I suppose. I got into, with the Feed Me Live show, I was involved heavily in the visuals for it and how it connected to the music. But FL's long had its own visual plugin in the form of the Z-Game editor, and one of my main discoveries with the last few versions is how powerful that is. They've added some features to the Z-Game editor, which is something I've become more and more interested in and have enjoyed using a lot. It uses bringing shaders into it. You can actually bring your own in if you can do the code, and you can manipulate them directly inside FL, generate visuals perfectly in sync with the music, literally connected to the elements that are playing the sound. And it has a very nice export module, so you can get that straight out. I think it'll even upload it to YouTube for you, which is mental. But I found that really useful, and they've continued to improve that. It's a very strange program, but incredibly powerful. Future plans, I'm still working on all 3 projects. I've got new Spore records coming into completion, a mixtape for Feed Me, I suppose, and pushing in a slightly new direction with that. And then I've just organised a lot of the Semp Stitch stuff, which is audio-visual as well, finishing up videos for that. And, some more involved than others, some sort of generative, and some are actually filmed pieces. Well, that's keeping me busy.